Hello, class. Thank you for sharing your health compromising behavior in the past 2 weeks. You all have done a great job in identifying the rationales behind the your behavior, and it's very good. It shows that you have done some reflective exercise to understand your own behavior, and is self-exploratory in the sense that it helps you to rethink why you have been doing it, the risk and consequence of doing it, what have been your barriers to changing their behavior, and reconsider the benefits of changing it. So it has been good, and I see that it has been a very encouraging exercise and process for you to raise your awareness, as all behavioral change starts with raising awareness in the very first beginning. So whether or not you plan to uh, change your behavior, it gives you a better insight of your own behavior through this exercise. So I hope all of you have benefits from it, and it's just a beginning of reflection of your own behavior. So today we're moving on to the next topic: nutrition and diet. So there are different types of nutrients. Nutrients help us to build our body, maintain our body functions, repair tissues, and regulate body functions. So there are two types of nutrients: the macronutrients, which are needed in large amounts in our body, such as water, carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. And they're usually described as in amount, as in grams and liters, or quarts and gallons. And micronutrients are needed in small amounts, such as vitamins and minerals, and is in amount is usually marked as milligrams. So let's switch to food label. So FDA says that there will be new food label coming out in 2020 January. So on the right hand side, you can see the new look of our food label. And on the right hand side is the current label that you usually find on our current food. So on the right hand side, you see that there is, on the very top, it shows that in the whole package of food, how many servings are there in the whole container. And then below it, it shows the serving size. In this case, is 2/3 cup or 55 gram, which means that all the ingredients shown below it is the amount in one serving of the food. And then number 2 is the amount of calories per serving of the food. In this case, 230 calories. And then number 3, it shows the nutrients such as fat, protein, and carbohydrates. Those are the macronutrients. And there are also micronutrients such as sodium, vitamins, calcium, iron, potassium. And there is also cholesterol. So those are all the main ingredients which are considered important for consumers to consider when they buy a food. And so there are fat contents. In this case, one serving of food contains 8 grams of fat, and that is corresponding to 10% of daily value. The daily value shows that there are that much a nutrient in a serving of the food, which contributes to a daily diet. For instance, by consuming one serving of this food, you will have consumed 10 grams of added sugar. That makes up to 20% of the daily recommended calorie intake from added sugar. Okay, and so it gives you an idea of how much buffer, or how much grams or percentage of added sugar you can eat for the rest of the day. In this case, you still have 80% of the required amount, or the limit that you can still take in that day. Okay, so this gives you an idea of how much I've been eating during the day and then how much left I can eat for that day, which is very good. And let's switch back to our slide. So there are two types of carbohydrates. The simple carbohydrates is the first type. Simple carbohydrates are 1 or 2 units of sugar connected together. And carbohydrates is the basic units for our body. And it is the only fuel that can be used by our red blood cells, our nerve cells, and also our brain. And sugar can be in the form of glucose, fructose, galactose, lactose, maltose, and sucrose. When we consume simple carbohydrates, it may lead to a sugar high. Okay, the blood sugar may goes up, and then it triggers our pancreas to secrete more insulin, and it uptakes the blood sugar to the organs and also the muscles, and then it may result in a sugar low, and we crave for sugar more. So the regulations of up and down cycle of the sugar may eventually disrupt our metabolism of the sugar, and it may result in diseases like diabetes. So it's not good to consume a lot of sugar, obviously. And the daily recommendation is you don't consume more than 10% of calories from added sugar. It may appear as sugar, corn syrup, and fructose on the food label. So in this canned Coke, the food label shows that there are 39 grams of total carbs, okay, which is all contributed from added sugars, okay, as it shows that there are 39 grams of added sugars. And so does it exceed the recommended daily intake for sugar? You don't need to do the calculation actually, and because the percent daily value has already shown that it has already met the daily recommendation or daily limit of 78% of the um, uh, added sugar intake for that day. So which means that if you're taking 2 cans of this Coke, you would have exceeded that daily recommendation. So complex carbohydrates means that there are more than 1 unit, 2 units of sugar connected together. It can be fibers or starches. It can be whole grains, usually whole grain, there are lots of complex sugars, and whole grains are preferred over refined grains because a lot of nutrients are already removed when they are being refined. And usually it also slow down the digestive process with whole grain, which is a good thing, which makes you fuller longer. And it takes up more energy to process the whole grain food. So that's why we prefer whole grains rather than refined grains. For fiber intake, the recommendations for women and men is 25 grams to 38 grams per day, respectively. Okay, considering that one moderate size of orange just contains 3 grams of fiber, which means that we have to consume at least 8 oranges per day, which is not realistic. So in order to meet up these recommendations of daily fiber intake, which we have to switch to different sources of fiber. For instance, 1 cup of black beans contain 15 grams of fiber, which is a good source of fiber. So we can intake different sources of fiber from fruits, vegetables, grains, cereals, and seeds. And protein types, there are 2 types, and the building blocks of proteins is amino acids. Okay, they are complete protein, which contains all the essential amino acids. Essential amino acids means that our body needs them, but we cannot produce them. So complete proteins are from animals, such as meat, fish, poultry, milk, cheese, and eggs. And incomplete proteins can be found in plants, and which means that they do not contain all of the essential amino acids that our body needs. And that's why people who are vegetarian, they need to consume a variety of plant source so that they can consume all the essential amino acids. And when we talk about fats, we usually think of it as bad, but fats like saturated fat and trans fat are bad to our body, but monounsaturated fat and polyunsaturated fat are good to our body because they can lower the bad cholesterol in our body. So monounsaturated fat and polyunsaturated fat sources are from nuts, avocados, and fish. And in this food label of granola oatmeal bag, how much fat is in 2 servings of this food? So you can see that on this food label, 1 serving is half a cup. Okay, if I consume half a cup, I would have consumed 5 grams of fat, which is about 8% of the daily value. If I consume 2 servings of this food, I would have consumed 10 grams of fat, which is about 16% of my daily recommendation of fat. Okay, so you don't need to do the calculation. It seems that 16% of my daily recommendation of fat seems quite a lot. But when you take a look at the details of the fat breakdown, you can see that a lot of the types of food are polyunsaturated fat and monounsaturated fat, which are considered good food because they can reduce the bad cholesterol. So we can analyze the food label by taking into consideration of the type of fats on the food label. And the bad cholesterol is the low density lipoproteins. The good cholesterol in the body is high density lipoproteins. With too much bad cholesterol, it may clog our arteries and lead to cardiovascular disease such as heart attack, stroke, so forth. So cholesterol is not completely bad because our body needs them to build up our body structures. The dietary guidelines for Americans is that you consume less than 2,300 milligrams of sodium per day. And it is considered some recommendations for you to stop hypertension. But if you are an African American over 55, over 50 years old, and have conditions of hypertension, diabetes, chronic kidney disease, then your daily sodium intake is limited to less than 1,500 milligram. And if you choose food, try to choose some food with food label of low sodium or reduced sodium. And also limit red meat consumption, which is associated with heart disease, cancer, and diabetes. So if you want to lose weight, the healthy goal for you is to lose 1 to 2 pounds each week. And 1 pound of fat can store 3,500 calories in our body. So which means that if you're losing 1 pound each week, you have to burn up 3,500 calories each week. If you divide it by 7 days a week, it means that you have to lose 500 calories each day, which is a lot. So if you do exercise, go to a gym and run on the treadmill, you can keep track of how much energy you're burning off if you run on the treadmill for half an hour or an hour. If you lose more weight than this healthy goal of 1 to 2 pounds each week, you tend to lose lean body mass, which means that you're losing your muscles rather than your fat, which is not good because it tends to decrease your basal metabolic rate, and it burns off less energy in your body. So you want to consume more complex carbohydrates because it uses more energy to process the food, which is the thermal effect of the food. All right, so This is it for today's lecture. And this week, I want to hear from you about your food that you have been consuming. So I want you to share by uploading your food label. Tell us why you think it's good, why you think it's bad, or what you or by analyzing the sugar level, carbohydrates, proteins, fibers, sodium. And then the second thing is you can keep track of 1 day of sodium and sugar intake and tell us what it is. An average American take in 3,400 milligrams of sodium. So you can estimate an approximate amount of sodium that you take each day. Um, and then the third thing I want you to share is if you have any weight loss experience, weight loss program that you have participated in, I want you to share with us on what your goal was and what was your experience. What did you do in the program? What did you eat? How long did it last? And how did you feel? So we want to share everything about food and also your weight so that we learn from each other. Okay, so I expect that this 2 weeks I'll see a lot of food labels and pictures of your food, and it will be a very exciting experience for all of us. Right, happy sharing for these 2 weeks.